Kia ora, my name is Julia Rose and I'm the Partnerships Manager at the Christchurch Foundation. As part of our Women's Fund speaker series, I'm really happy to be able to speak to Sacha McMeeking today. Kia ora, Sacha.
Kia ora.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
It's lovely to be able to contribute to this kaupapa. It's a really important one.
We really appreciate it. So Sacha works at the University of Canterbury, where she's the head of school for Maori and Indigenous studies. And before joining the university, she was the director of a boutique consultancy where she worked with iwi Maori on their strategy development and their asset management. And prior to that, she was the general manager of strategy and influence for Te Runanga o Ngāi Tahu, where she was responsible for government relations on behalf of the iwi. So Sacha, with our Women's Fund, as you know, we really believe in the power of promoting and highlighting some of the women of Otatahi who are doing incredible mahi like yourself, because of the power of using their stories to inspire other women and girls. So I know you've inspired a lot of people, but I'm really interested to hear who's inspired you.
There are so many people that are inspirational, and not all of them are household names. But I think the consistent thing about what inspires me are women who have got the courage to be wholly them and to uphold their values. Women who have got the endurance to persist. And my absolute favourites are the women who you wouldn't imagine should be currently doing what they're doing. They've overcome something, they're the unusual suspects. And there's three in particular that I'd like to acknowledge. The first one, who I think is just a remarkable example of a woman who has courage to follow her values, is Whaia Tariana Turia, when she crossed the floor on foreshore and seabed. That was courage of conviction that led to the Māori Party, and irrespective of politics, leaving a party that you belong to and forging your own path when literally all of your mates are staying behind, that's absolute courage in my opinion. We've got so many women who persist in their communities and in our communities, and they might reincarnate in different roles, but they continue to be there. And another political example of a woman who is my best mate, so all biases acknowledged there, is Kiritapu Allen, who is currently a Member of Parliament for the Labour Party, just showing that it's not only, this isn't a partisan thing. And Kiritapu didn't finish school and had long dreadlocks and was a bit of a ragamuffin as a teenager, who subsequently finished law school despite all the odds, who subsequently became a Member of Parliament. And her life story is a story I see repeating, and it touches my heart every day, about the women who we see who have overcome not finishing school to start business ventures, or women who are solo mothers and doing remarkable 3 jobs to create different futures for their children, because they share all of those characteristics. They believe in something, they've fought, and they've overcome anything that life's thrown at them. And I think the most important thing to me is to celebrate those everyday heroes. We might not know their names, but without them, there would be, with them, we have far brighter futures.
Thank you, Sacha. That's really beautiful that you've come up with those examples and their values that sit behind their work, especially that courage to follow your conviction, because this is what it's all about, being inspired, and I feel really inspired to look them up and to look at the history of what they've done. So thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you.
Now, you're known for your entrepreneurial approach when you work with iwi Māori, and one of the many innovations that you have brought to university is the Maii Lab, which, as far as I can tell, but correct me if I'm wrong, the intention behind the Maii Lab is for students to have a place where they can learn how to collect communities' hopes and aspirations, which is similar to the mahi that we have here at the Christchurch Foundation. So can you tell us a bit more about the intention of the lab and why you set that up?
So the Maui Lab was something I really wanted to do when I first came into the role. And it's named the Maui Lab to celebrate the legacy of Maui Tukituki a Taranga, the naughty and irreverent demigod who harnessed the sun and did all kinds of things that nobody thought were possible, because that ability to be motivated by some bigger good and to do things that are audacious and seen as impossible, I think that's what the world needs now. We need thousands of Maui archetypes out there creating change and transformation. So the Maui Lab was about helping our students become the next generation who are creating Maui-like solutions for our community. And the wonderful thing about aspiring to be like Maui is there's no curricula for that. How do you learn how to be audacious? You don't sit in a lecture room and learn how to be audacious. How do you learn to create atypical solutions? You get out there and get your hands dirty. So the Maui Lab was about bringing real world challenges to our students so that they could learn through service and experience. And also it was about responding to some of the dynamics we have in our student body. So we've kind of got three cohorts of Māori students. We tend to have students that are really strong in their taha Māori, their Māori knowledge, but may not have a whole lot of confidence stepping into other contexts. We've still got some students that are coming to university to discover their Māori identity because they haven't been connected through their families. And then we've got non-Māori students that really want to contribute to Māori aspirations as well. And we all know that we tend to tribalise in who we talk to. So the Maui Lab was about crossing those tribal divisions and bringing our ones that were strong in taha Māori with those who are striving for their taha Māori and those that are non-Māori but want to connect and contribute, and about them being able to learn from each other and collaborate with each other, because that connecting with those that we are unlike, I think, is where a lot of personal growth and transformation comes from. And it's been really beautiful over the last few years to see the personal growth that has happened in our students, and to see them realise that they are capable of far more than they ever imagined. So we've done a range of different projects, from going down to Mai Marae and helping with the development of a strategic plan, to partnering with Te Pūtahitanga on a research project which was about identifying macro trends like automation and climate change, and in doing an interpretation and analysis of how that might impact on Māori communities in the South Island of New Zealand. So a really broad range of things that I'm really delighted to be able to have the opportunity to contribute to.
Well, congratulations. It sounds like an awesome project, and can't wait to hear more of what the students are coming up with. Speaking of being audacious in your problem solving, I just want to touch finally on the impacts of COVID, because often with a pandemic like something like COVID-19, it can highlight the inequalities that were already present in our community, which is a good thing, because then it breaks it open and we can all see what's really there, and then allows us to perhaps fix the problems. So how do you think we can use this opportunity to bust through some of the imbalances for Māori women of Ōtautahi?
Yeah, I think there's a few layers to that question. And the first one is the story of the first wave of COVID, which is a remarkable story that I don't know why there aren't banners in the street about it. Because at the beginning of lockdown, what everyone predicted rightly was that Māori would experience at least twice the infection and mortality rates of non-Māori. And that's based on our existing health patterns and the number of comorbidity and co-infection health issues that Māori disproportionately experience. And some would say that was a conservative estimate because 100 years ago, Māori died at 7 to 8 times the rate of non-Māori in the 1918 pandemic. So that's what we expected, Māori to have far worse experiences of COVID. What actually happened is, for the first time in our contemporary history, Māori had better social outcomes than non-Māori. Māori have a disproportionately low infection rate from the first wave of COVID. So it's a wow story, right?
That's right.
And I think there are a whole number of reasons that we had that really remarkable outcome, and some of that is absolutely attributable to the science-led lockdown elimination strategy we had, which I wholeheartedly support. But we know that mainstream policies don't produce better social outcomes for Māori. They just perpetuate the status quo. So just that really good sound lockdown strategy is not the reason that we get this once in 100-year positive news story. There's more to it. And some of it is about how Māori mobilised in response to the first lockdown. Because there was an enormous amount of mobilisation inside Māori communities of all types. Online karakia, the roadblocks which were politicised and are now being repeated in Auckland, as well as distribution of food and resources and hygiene packs. Enormous amount of mobilisation that I think is the real reason that we've got that rare and remarkable and wonderful outcome of Māori having better social outcomes. That the next part, though, is not going to be such a happy news story, and that the likely move of unemployment will disproportionately affect Māori because of the sectors that we tend to be employed in, and more so that will disproportionately affect Māori women. So the current forecasts are that 1 in 4 Māori will be unemployed as a result of COVID, and that 1 in 4 Māori won't be evenly distributed. That will quite possibly be 2 or more family members who become unemployed. And we know from the stats released only a few weeks ago that 90% of the people who have become unemployed so far because of COVID are women. And when you combine those two things, Māori are disproportionately affected and women are disproportionately affected. They converge on Māori women are likely to experience the highest concentration of unemployment as a result of COVID. So it's hugely sobering, it's hugely worrying, and particularly because we know that if there are future lockdowns and childcare becomes difficult to access, it's predominantly women that are going to have to respond to the childcare constraints, which could result in the situation of I can have a job or I can look after my kids, but I can't do both, particularly if we have sustained and ongoing lockdowns. So it's definitely a hugely challenging and complex time. The thing that I am heartened by is that I think Māori women have also a really strong makeup in Māori's small and medium enterprise sector. Lots of our small businesses are owned by Māori women. And lots of those businesses come from really practical drivers of being able to financially support whānau. And I think we're going to see a huge wave of Māori women's entrepreneurialism coming forward that will be something to celebrate, but also something that will need nurturing. Because the COVID context might be the time we most need business to provide financial security for our family, but equally it's going to be the highest risk context to start a new business when markets are changing, when there's more unemployment and uncertainty about incomes. The market's going to be a little bit more cautious. So I guess it's an encouragement to all, and particularly Māori women aspiring entrepreneurs, to just go for it, and equally an encouragement to all of us to be really conscious about where we spend our money. we can choose to spend our money in a way that supports the community and the social outcomes that we want. Yeah.
That's right. And it comes back to that courage and resilience values that you talked about earlier, doesn't it? Because now is a scary time, but also a time for opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Sacha. Your knowledge and your enthusiasm for this area has just been really fascinating. So thank you so much for sharing all of your thoughts and your insights with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a lovely opportunity, and a big shout out to you guys for all of the beautiful work that you're doing. It's a really important contribution for our community. So thank you.
Thank you. And that's thanks to all of our followers and our supporters who, as you say, are thinking in a community-led way, well, who can we be helping now and who can we be thinking about? And that's where contributing to the Women's Fund comes in.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sacha. E nohora.
Kia ora.